Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Lifeonaire Show. I'm your host, Jason Wojo. On the Lifeonaire Show, we help people make more, work less, and live better. I am joined by my co-host, Polish Peter.
You almost looked like you were going to trip over your words there.
I almost did. I always say my Polish co-host, Polish Peter, and I'm like, that's so redundant, man. Where did you learn how to speak English? And so I did not do that, but I paused for a second. You're right. You called me on it.
Okay, that sounds like Wojo, and that it will be the catch line for this particular episode. This is this podcast is sponsored by That Sounds Like Wojo.
Hey, so dude, we got an awesome episode. We have Mark Dolfini on, and so Mark, I had the cool privilege of meeting him through some mutual friends, and we have so much in common. He actually coaches business owners, small business owners, to get into rental real estate, residential real estate, and we started talking, and he's totally on board with all the vision stuff that we do, and he has his own version of it, and it's just such an overlap. It's really cool to have that conversation. I mean, he's a really nice guy too.
Yeah, so I love this particular episode, and the reason being is that he talks about one of the most important things in any business, in any life, especially with real estate, is vision. A lot of people completely put that aside, and he kind of explains why that is so important. And then towards the end of the episode, he talks about current time, on what he believes you should be doing in the current time. So I think this is a really good episode to listen to and take it out for yourself.
It's an awesome one. Let's jump in right now. Here's our interview with Mark Dolfini. Hey, Mark, what's up? Welcome to Lifeonaire Show.
It's good to see you, Wojo. Peter, it's good to see you both.
Man, I'm excited. You and I had the chance. We have some circles that overlap with our friends, business associates. We had the chance to connect recently, and I wanted to get you on the show, man, because you have, quite frankly, a very complimentary, viewpoint on business and life as Lifeonaire. And I'm like, man, we gotta get him on. So just to give everybody a background here, you are a Marine. I know. I've made that mistake before. You're never not a Marine anymore.
You've been. I learned. You've been trained.
Stuff, that's right. But it's interesting. Not only have you done that, you've been in like in accounting, banking, credit analysis, all these different things, and residential property management. And now, like, your angle is kind of like helping small business owners in their residential real estate property buy and hold kind of strategies. Is that accurate?
Yeah. That's 100%. Yeah, that's pretty much spot on.
Dude, now hold on a second. How did you end up there? Like, how did you decide this is your niche and this is what you're passionate about?
I feel like the Forrest Gump of the coaching realm right now. Like it just kind of wandered that way. It just because I
didn't run. You wandered. You didn't run.
Exactly. I was like, run. Like, but I literally. It's interesting that when you get really clear in your vision, which I know obviously your listeners are very aware of your approach on vision. It's the same with mine, but I feel like vision is the keyhole that you look through to see your purpose. And when I got really, really clear, really intentional about my vision, specifically about what it was that I wanted to accomplish, and I was like, and then all of a sudden I was settling into some really natural tools that I have as a teacher and as a coach. Things about my faith and things about how my approach to business was. I feel like everything that I have done up to this point has naturally led me to being a coach and being a teacher. And I was just like, wow. So I went through that crap so I could do this and teach this to someone else. And so their lives are not awful. And so they can not miss the baseball game with their kid. So they can, so they can have that moment with their adult, with their parent, spend that time with their aging parent, right? Or even more so, to more real world is, so they can have the fight with their spouse that needs to happen and not be exhausted when they do it and make it destructive. Right? Mm-hmm. Like, not all conflict is bad, but it's like we all need to have conflict with our spouses. That's natural. Two human beings living together, you're going to have that. But when you're doing it running at 105% every day, out the door at 5:30 a.m., back in at 7:30, and the fight has to happen and then when the time does happen and you're exhausted, nothing's good going to come from that. Right. So it's about having that white space on your calendar, and specifically for the specific niche that you talked about.
Peter and I fight all the time, like a married spouse too. So like, this is going to be valuable.
He's the wife. Just putting it out there.
I think that's kind of self-explanatory, Peter. But
what,
I mean,
dude? I like you more and
didn't
more
have to
as
say
we
that.
talk on this
Everybody knew.
podcast. Man, perfect. That is recorded live. Now everybody in the world knows it. So where we go, Bojo?
So here's my next question though. Is that what led you to residential rental property? Like, is it what is it that specific and walk us through why that can lead to, and I'm guessing, I'm making an assumption here that that your model is set up around the belief that, you know, residual or passive income through rental properties will allow you more time freedom. Is that a leap, or am I off there?
Just a little bit, but the irony is, and you can't really see my moniker, but landlord coach behind me, you know, the irony is I don't want to make people into landlords. The irony is, you know, I would rather they be business owners. And honestly, I would rather they be soccer coaches. I would rather they be moms and dads and brothers and sisters. And I know that sounds like, you know, maybe people who are like, oh gosh, here he goes again. You're like, but there's nothing wrong with having a successful business. I mean, it's prideful to have a, you know, like, look, I'm knocking it down. I'm doing pretty well in business, but also for what? What's the end goal of it for, right? So, you know, the thing is, I've actually had a passion for small business for a really long time, because the fact that why I love small business so much is because it's all on you, and you can move the ship very, very quickly, be very tactical, and not have this massive thing that, you know, if you got hundreds of employees and hundreds of mouths to feed and everything, that's a lot. That's a lot to deal with. My passion was always with small business. Now, I chose to do it through the realm of real estate, but I have since opened other businesses that are technically small businesses, but they've all followed the same methodology that I taught in the book, which is the vision infrastructure process method. But it wasn't until, like, I mean, I do love passive income, but it doesn't mean disengaged. You still have to be plugged into the business to a certain degree. And that's where I think people were making the big disconnect when people reach out to me and go, oh, I just want passive income. I want mailbox money. And I'm like, I'm going to be honest with you. It's my belief. I don't think it really ever truly exists where you don't ever have to touch it ever.
Yeah.
I just don't. I mean, not unless you're going to pay a money manager and all that, you know, if you're resting in a REIT or something like that. But in true small business fashion, I think there has to be some level of engagement, but not to the point where it's consuming you.
Okay. So it's about being kind of strategic as to how you run things so that you have the time to do the things that are most important to you.
Right. That's correct. Yeah.
So go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, you mentioned your 3-step process from your book. Walk us through that a little bit.
So the way that I do this is it's called the VIP method. Like I mentioned, it's the vision infrastructure process method. So first and foremost is vision, which is specifically about what it is that you want to accomplish. Now, a lot of times when people come to me, they might go to my YouTube channel. They're looking for the tactic, and that's not what I'm about. If they're coming to me for tactics, it's like, you know, they're coming to me for an aspirin and they may have a brain tumor. I'm like, hey man, let's look at this from top down rather than from bottom up, because it's like, you know, it's the question of, you know, how do I get my tenants to pay on time? How do I get them to not trash my properties? It's the typical questions that they're frustrated about. Like, how do I avoid all these wild swings in cash flow that I get in my rental properties? And I'm like, you're treating a symptom, not the disease. Let's look at this from top down. What are you trying to accomplish at the end of the day? And as I travel around and speak at different REIA groups and landlord associations, they, you know, I'll be mingling in the crowd, you know, prior to my speaking. They don't really necessarily know who I am, but they'll, oh, you're a landlord coach. Oh yeah. I'm like, well, you know, what is it you're trying to accomplish? And they'll say, well, I really want to get 100 rental properties. Right. It's always increments of 25, by the way.
Right. Yes.
Always.
Usually it ends around 100 too.
Yeah.
There was a book written.
Exactly 100. Exactly. Yeah. They need exactly 100. So it's always increments of 25 though. So it's like, okay, so you need 50 rental units or 75 or, you know, whatever. And I'm like, okay, so you need 100 rental units. I'm like, and I say, well, 99 wouldn't get you where you want to go. Oh, yeah, 99 would probably be okay. I'm like, okay, how about 93? I think 93 is a prime number. I mean, how about that? Would 93 not work for you? Right. And I'll continue down on that number until they start to realize that what they're doing is they're confusing the number of rental units with the life output they think that's going to buy them. And that's where I say, no, look, vision is specifically about what you want. What are you trying to accomplish with this portfolio? Like, you can make money in a lot of different ways. And that's the great thing about real estate, is that there's 1,000,001 ways to make $1 million, but that's also the problem with real estate, is there's 1,000,000 different ways to make $1 million. So it's a very distractible business. So what vision are you trying to accomplish? And once you accomplish that vision, then you can reverse engineer your business that you want for you by putting infrastructure and process in place. So vision comes first. And let's say for argument's sake that your vision is to lay on the beach for 2 months out of the year rubbing cocoa butter on your belly. Okay, that's a great vision.
That sounds
right?
like Vojo.
I want you to run cocoa butter on my belly, Peter.
I don't know who's rubbing cocoa butter on whose belly, but let's say we're rubbing cocoa butter on our own bellies. Hands to yourselves, okay? So you're rubbing cocoa butter on your belly for 2 months out of the year. The next piece is infrastructure. And the reason why infrastructure comes next is because you're going to design an infrastructure that's in alignment with that vision. Because if you want to lay on the beach rubbing cocoa butter on your belly, and you design an infrastructure where you're going to have to return emails and phone calls in a timely manner, that's going to be a terrible experience for you when you're trying to lay on the beach, rubbing cocoa butter on someone else's belly, right? So it's important that you put the infrastructure in place that's in alignment with that vision. And then finally, is process. Process is just, for the military folks out there, it's your SOPs, your standard operating procedure. It's the tactics that a lot of the gurus will teach you. And although I'm not a tactically based coach, I do have lots of tactics that work really, really well. But those tactics will run on the infrastructure that you created, and all stay in alignment with your vision for the future.
Got it.
So listen, I got a question for you, because you talk about vision and I love that particular whole idea. What I heard is you're talking about vision for your life. What do you want your life to look like? Correct? Do you also design the vision for your business, the landlord's business?
Yeah, you have to. And the reason why I usually don't lead with that, because almost always everybody comes to me and I'll say, well, what is it you're trying to accomplish? And they say, oh, well, I really want 100 rental units. And they're confused. They'll go straight to business vision. And I feel that that's such a great question, because I think what ends up happening, at least, and I can only speak to my experience and the experience that I've had with my clients, is that when they define the coaching or the business vision first, what ends up happening is they end up creating a business that they have to exist for, right? Mm-hmm. So it's, rather than creating a business that exists for them, they create a vision where they have to exist to serve the business. Right. And as a result, they have they have a where they
like that they work for the business.
Exactly. They work for the business now, because they inserted themselves into that business vision. So. Yeah.
So I get that. Like, there is a process to that. And the step 1 is life vision. Step 2 is business vision. But I wanted to see, because we do that in Lifeonaire here, I want to see if, when it comes to landlords, when it comes to buy and hold real estate investors, are you talking to them about, hey, now that you've got your life vision, what you want your life to look like, are you designing that business? Earlier in the conversation, you talked about, small business owners. You can basically go in 20 different ways. So are you having that conversation with them to help them develop that and take control of that particular part of life as well?
Yeah, you have to. I think that's really critical, because the business vision part is, it's going to help. It's going to help keep them focused, because of course you're creating this mechanism, where you're creating this business for them that is going to deliver their personal vision. I mean, that's what it's for, right?
Right.
And I feel like, if you don't have that business vision established, which I look at it, I don't really go beyond a 3-year time horizon. And the reason being is because there's just too many variables. I think there's too many variables beyond 3 years. Me personally, I think that's my truth. I think businesses can evolve so quickly, and if you're not careful, it's like, oh, that's my part of my 10-year vision. Man, I'm sorry. I feel like if you have a vision that far out, it's really easy to hide inside inactivity. And I'm speaking from, it's like that guy you run into from high school. You're like, oh, it's like, Man, that's part of my 5-year plan, dude. That was like in high school, and you're still doing the same thing, driving the same car. Like, you were cool in high school with that car. You're not cool anymore, right?
That sounds like Vojo.
Some truth to that.
You're still driving that Z28.
I'm going with this for the whole entire podcast.
Right.
I'll just interject it at any point that I can think like, okay, this might make sense.
Well, that's so true though. Like, it's so easy, like to push something down the road. Oh, it's 10 years. I have 9 more years to work on that. Like, versus, and I'll tell you, even with Lifeonaire, like the direction and the trajectory of the company, there's so many variables. I mean, just look at what happened with COVID. Like, how many business plans got destroyed and had to get reinvented just in the past couple of years. Like, I think it's totally it's wise. And the other thing that you said, Mark, I wanted to kind of highlight as well, and you answered it, is that the whole purpose. Now, I shouldn't say the whole purpose. The biggest purpose of our business is to support and provide for the life we want. And I think, one of the analogies we use in Lifeonaire, for instance, is people confuse the vehicle with the destination. Many people, by default, almost like accidentally, business becomes a destination. But really what you want is business to be the vehicle to get you to the destination of the life you want. And so, like, I think I'm totally with you with that. Hey, we'll be right back with our episode interview with Mark. But before we do, I want to tell you about something that you're going to want to check out. And there's 2 things, actually, not just one, that I think will absolutely transform your life and your business. The first thing I want to tell you about is our Get a Life Getaway. This is a 3-day training where we walk you hand in hand. We guide you through the exact process and the steps to create your own vision for your own life so that you can live the life you are destined for, the one you desire, the one you dream about. Now, the other side of that is the Business Builder Workshop, because what we found is many people, quite frankly, they can't live their vision to the full extent when they have a job working for somebody else and they're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week or more. And so what we do in the Business Builder Workshop is we help you design the business to serve your life. Now, I want you to go to the Get a Life Getaway first, because that's going to really help you design the business. And I know that sounds crazy, but like, once you know what life was going to look like, now we can design a business to help you achieve everything you want in your life. So go to lifeonaire.com. This is where you'll see the upcoming events. We have about half of the year scheduled already for 2022. And we have a couple events coming up that you can get on the registration list for and reserve a seat now, and we'll make you're going to love it. It's going to make all the difference in the world. Be the best investment you've ever made in yourself in your business. All right, let's get back to our episode right now with Mark Dolfini. When you mention residential real estate in particular, is that because that's where your skill set was and you saw this work for you, or was there something specific about this asset class that really drew you to it and you really thought was a great tool to jump into?
It's serendipity, really, because I after I got out of the Marine Corps, I came to Purdue to get my degree, to get my education. And when I was in school, the first year I was in school, I started buying residential rentals. I bought my first rental property when I was in school, and it really just kind of fell into it. Now, every market's a little bit different. So when I got to, if I went, an hour south to Indianapolis, I might have looked at apartment buildings. I might have looked at a different asset class. Okay. But it just, or if I went north, I might have looked at more, more commercial properties. And I have a little bit of experience in both, but residential rentals just really, really worked for me and for what it was I was trying to do. So I think the main thing is that it fit who I was, and it really worked well, for me. But the reason I do like it, there's lots of course we can get into the tax benefits and all that other stuff too, but like, I'm getting very, very close to the promised land where I'm completely out of debt. And, right now, I know kind of how you guys feel about debt. I am very debt averse. I'm okay with using debt for the tool that it is, but I'm getting close to the promised land now. And, mathematically, especially as we head into a rising inflationary environment, it makes sense mathematically. I don't know that I can do that emotionally. Like, emotionally, I'm like, man, I don't know. I'm signing a lot of checks on the front now, or signing a lot of checks on the back now, not nearly as many on the front. And I like that. It's a great feeling. Yeah. So I know that's a whole other discussion, but but that vehicle just really worked well for me. But during that time, I was also trying to build other businesses at the same time. I was trying to do a house flipping business. I was trying to do some day trading. I had a whole mess of things that I was into. None of them I was doing very well. because I was just trying to build too many bridges all at one time, rather than building one bridge, walking back across, and then going and building the second bridge, and then walking back across, and using those tools to build other businesses one at a time.
Dude, we have a lot in common. We have a lot.
That sounds like Mojo.
Yeah. I have been there, my friend. And I also can relate to the debt stuff too. Mark, you probably don't know this. I don't think I mentioned this to you before, but like there was a point in my life where I had almost $90,000 of credit card debt alone, not even including any other debt.
Yeah.
It was crushing. And I will never, ever, ever go back to having credit card debt ever. And it took a while to dig out of that. And actually, you have a quote: "An ounce of action defeats a pound of doubt." What does that mean?
Yeah, that's I forgot that. I didn't think anybody actually read that.
Mark, hey, listen, we do our research in the Lifeonaire show here. This is very professional.
Clearly, is my third grade teacher going to come on and go like, so?
Yeah, Mark, that's
yeah.
Right.
Do you want to talk about the time you cheated on that English test? Because
something to talk about. Yeah.
I really feel that for a long time I was in this mode of getting ready to get ready, and I can see that in a lot of people where they're not afraid they're afraid to take action because it's not perfect. And what I started to recognize is that I had a lot of self-sabotaging, self-defeating, self-punishing behaviors, that those were all tied to limiting beliefs that I had, that were this vast array of just crap, just head trash of I had a bad relationship with money, even though I thought that I had a good relationship with money. And then I realized, I really do have a bad relationship with money. And because I had a bad relationship with money, and that was tied to a self-worthiness issue, and all these other things that these limiting beliefs that I had that were causing these self-sabotaging behaviors. So it was really interesting that, that your actions can impact, your behaviors and things like, they can change your state. Obviously, like if you're having a state of like, you're like, okay, I'm frozen, I don't even know what to do. Just move, just take some sort of action just to get moving, just to get your legs moving. Right. One of the things in wrestling or in football, they'll say, just keep moving, just keep your legs moving. When you're not moving, you're getting ready to get stuck. Right. You're going to get ready to get tackled, to get ready to get pinned. But that's the same thing in business. Like it's better to take, even if it's just a little bit of action, rather than just being frozen and saying, okay, well, there's so much to do, I don't even know what to get started on first. Where you can be hiding inside inactivity, like I mentioned earlier, because there's so much to do, because you created your business that way, right? So I'm kind of wandering down a couple of different rabbit holes here, but I feel like just taking some sort of action, it eliminates a lot of fear that people have, because action defeats fear. Most of the time when we feel like, well, what if I start a podcast and nobody watches? Okay, as I sit here today, on 12/30/21, I have 215 followers on YouTube. You know what? It's 175 more than I had, a year and a half ago. And who cares? I'm just going out there and getting it going and moving, because I'm not afraid of, like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Mm-hmm. Someone's going to call and snipe at me. They're going to snipe at me anyway. Who cares? Don't let that inactivity become paralyzing, because I know as a small business owner, a lot of times we feel like we're in the trenches alone, and it can freeze you up, and you end up going nowhere.
Yeah, man, that's totally true. It's like the longer you wait to do something, the bigger and scarier it gets. You just got to do something. Like, you got 100 pounds to lose. Well, don't think about that. Think about getting outside and walking around your block once or something like that.
Anything. Yeah. I mean, even, as when I was in the Marine Corps, the worst times I had were the times building up to the thing. It was always, or even in high school, if I had a big match, everything was like building up to the first whistle blowing. It was like all that anxiety had time to build. Mm-hmm. And it takes time for anxiety to build. And if you can Now, here's a problem is that without a vision, you can be very purposeless in your activity. So you just kind of wander. It's like it's also, you can hide in inactivity as well. So you can hide in inactivity, right? Like, just like, I have so many things to do, I don't know where to get started on first. Or you can hide in activity, meaning like, oh, got a phone in my head, running around, super, super busy, right? And you see these all the time, especially in the real estate side where, they feel like they got to go out and do the hustle. It's like, dude, you are doing a lot of running around in circles. If you can be focused and you have a vision in terms of knowing specifically where it is exactly you want to go, now you can start to put some actionable things in place and say, okay, is this really getting me to my vision, or is this literally just staying busy? Like, no one ever in the history of ever, and I would ask you if this is true for you guys. When someone has formed a vision, does anyone put on their vision 3 hours on Facebook?
Yeah, right.
Ever in the history
that
of
sounds
ever.
like Vojo.
Well, he does, but in his defense, though, you did have it in your vision to spend 3 hours on Facebook, right? I mean, each day, right?
Exactly. So I'm still meeting my vision.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
I get it, man.
He's meeting his vision, right? But you can hide an activity just looking like you're busy, but really not.
So unpack that for us, man, because like, I think we live in a culture like that. We have like 10x this, the grind, the hustle, this pervasive marketing that is very, it's appealing in that it's motivational and you're like, yeah, rah, rah, like let's kill it. Let's drag it home and, eat it kind of thing. And so what are your thoughts on that? And why is it so appealing to people?
Yeah. Why is it so appealing? I don't know. It certainly hits a lot of basic needs, doesn't it? Where, they're like 10x, like, dude, you're not ready for 2x. Let alone 10x. You have no infrastructure, you have no process. And I will say I was in the early days really critical of Grant Cardone and all that 10x stuff, but it's interesting because I think in the case of marketing and sales, which he is all about, that's really what he is. I feel like that's not wrong as long as you have the operations and the fulfillment piece to cater to that, right? To cater to that level. When I get into my business side of it, if I can unpack this a little bit. So the infrastructure and process piece I look at through, the 4 basic functions of any business. And this is true for any small business, is that they have to have 4 basic functions. They have to have lead gen, they have to have sales, they have to have an operations or fulfillment piece, and they have to have accounting. If you don't have those 4 pieces, you don't really have a business. You have, I don't even know what you have, but I know what I had, and it was a job that I created for myself. So when I break it down to lead gen, sales, operations, and accounting, that lead gen and sales piece, which I would say Grant Cardone he's not great at sales as much as he's great at lead gen. I mean, he's probably great at sales too because of where he's at, but those are his 2 main things. But if you're like, you're yelling 10x and you get 1 million customers, could your business handle that fulfillment? Many small businesses couldn't.
Yeah. So
I think the reason why that's so attractive is because it gives the appearance that you're doing something, whether or not you're ready for it, whether or not you're ready for it.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that Grant Cardone did say, which I don't 100% agree with, but he speaks to be, to create friction. But he did say that volume fixes everything. And to a lot of degree, he's not wrong. I mean, if you have volume in your marketing and you realize you don't have enough salespeople to handle the marketing that's coming in, look, you're either going to fix it or you're going to fail. And if you have all these people selling for you and you don't have the fulfillment piece, you're either going to fulfill it or you're going to fail. Mm-hmm. So it does show, it shows a lot of the cracks in a lot of areas where, without volume, you would never otherwise know. So I think there is some wisdom to that, but it's just the problem is that people, they focus too much on the front end and never realize how much actual work this is going to be and how they are probably not the ones that should be best doing it. They need to be creating a business and recognize their skill set and get out of the way and let other people do it for them.
Yeah. Right. Well, and that's it's interesting, like if in fact you 10x your business, are you really ready for that? Because let me tell you, it's a whole different ball of wax when you start like scaling a business. Plus, and I think the biggest challenge I have with the adoption of this kind of philosophy, and it is appealing because, like, you know, we're in America and bigger is better, right? Like, so the bigger the tires, the bigger SUV, the bigger the house, so I think it's appealing. My biggest concern with it is, like, what does your vision say? Like, if 1xing or 2xing your business is great, why are you going to grow to 10? You know, if your vision is going to cost you, if your perfect life is going to cost you 10 grand a month, well, do you need to make 100? And what are you going to sacrifice to make that extra 90 grand? And so, like, so if in fact, and listen, I'm a former athlete myself, and I love motivation. I love inspiration. I'm like, put me in, coach. But you got to sometimes just hesitate for a moment before you make a decision that's going to compromise what you're really trying to accomplish in the end, which is, you know, like you've talked about, Mark, is your vision.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's the main circuit breaker for me.
Yeah.
Is, you know, okay, you want to 10x your business. Where does that fit in your business? Because, you know, if you're ready to do that and you've got the people in place to 10x your business and that's in your vision, great. You know, I'm not going to say it's wrong, but I know for the sake of just taking on extra volume, when people are already maxed out in their day and they're like, no, just push through and do this. And what I think people often miss is that, yeah, Grant Cardone is everywhere, you know, like literally you can't go on LinkedIn or any social media platform and not get interrupted by an ad from him eventually. And then once you get on his list, good luck getting off, you know, getting off the list. I'm like, somehow I'm on his list again. I'm like, good God, this guy. But the point is, you know, he's not the one doing all this.
Yeah.
You know, and you have to stop for a second. And I use, I don't know if you guys are familiar with predictive index. I use predictive index with my clients to say, you know, and there's lots of different personality profiles out there, but, you know, use that to determine your core genius, your skill set, and stick with that. Be like fanatical about the things that you're great at, and you will love every day of your life. I love what I do as a coach. I absolutely love it. I get to think, I get to be creative, I get to motivate people, I get to hold people accountable. It's like I was created for this. Everything preceding or following, I am terrible at. Just email me and find out. I'm terrible at it. That's why I have a chief of staff, right? My chief of staff helps keep aligned all the different businesses that I have and my business of life, where she'll every now and again go, when's the last time you've been to the dentist? When's the last time you've been to the chiropractor? When's the last time you've updated your will? I'm like, did I really ask you to remind me of these things? She's like, yep. Right? But because she's great at details and I am not great at details, you know, I'm more of a visionary, you know, type thinker. I get to be naturally what I'm great at, and I don't try to plug all the holes and the chinks in my armor.
Yeah, I love that, man. And that's powerful. And that's a very important thing to look at from a business standpoint. So I got one last question for you, because at the podcast, you talked about the vision. And I think that's one of the biggest, mistakes or biggest lessons that, you know, your students and probably you have learned that was missing in order for you to be successful. Give us about two more lessons that you've learned, or do you see your students like buy and hold people, that mistakes that they make, that, man, if I wish I knew that, I wouldn't be where I'm at, kind of thing, like the lessons that you've learned, 2-3 lessons.
Oh man. This is going on right now. So it's very appropriate is, people are not, they're not doing their analysis properly on their properties, or their, I don't know what metric they're using, but they're paying way too much. Just because they have this FOMO, fear of missing out. So they feel like they've got to do something. I'm just going to, you know, they missed out on the last 10 offers. So they're just going to buy whatever they can and they're going to make it work. And I'm thinking, good God, man, like I don't agree with that. Like a bad investment is still a bad investment. Like you've got to approach this smart and, you know, keep your powder dry. Because I know right now it's like, well, if I don't deploy this cash, right, which is another thing that, you know, Grant had said, is like, no, there's like for me, I feel a lot more comfortable with cash that's sitting in the bank because you didn't crawl through what I crawled through back in 2008 when I had a $6 million portfolio that I turned into $1.5 million in about 8 months. And on top of that, I got double pneumonia and almost died in the hospital. So like if I had enough cash to weather that storm, I would absolutely have come out, not only would I have come out unscathed, I would have come out better because I would have been able to acquire a lot more properties and I would have been stronger and I would have had a better banking relationship. And I mean, I wouldn't have gone through half of what I went through. But I feel like right now people are there's too many motivated buyers right now that are trying to deploy every cent of capital that they have. And I'm let me just say it this way. They're not prepared for the tail event. In a tail event, if you know in a distribution, right, it's not the event that you can plan for that hurt you. It's the tail events like a pandemic that you can't plan for. It's the tail event, right? We're talking these Six Sigma events that are so, you just never see them coming. You never see 9/11 coming. You never see this mortgage crisis coming where, was it Bear Stearns fails and all these major banks fail. Like you don't see that stuff coming, but you go, holy crap, this is going to impact a lot of people in a really bad way. That's why I like the cash, because it's my insurance policy and I hear it, but you're losing purchasing power because especially in a rising inflationary environment. Yeah, but you know what? I can sleep pretty darn well at night because I've got that cash. Now, it doesn't mean I won't deploy it, but I have a certain amount of cash that's a lot more than probably people would feel comfortable having, because I want that insurance policy to know, look, if things go sideways in the world, I want to know that I've got the cash. And I'm not talking about lines of credit. I'm not talking about credit cards because, Wojo, sounds like you've been there, where you had that $90,000 in credit card debt, which, by the way, is like $2,500 a month in payments, right?
You don't have to tell me.
That's minimum payments.
Oh yeah.
They would literally take you like 40 years to get out of it, just paying minimum payments. So it sucks. And it sucks the life out of you. So I'm not talking about credit cards. I'm talking about specific cash sitting in the bank. I don't care where you hold it. If you hold it in cash or cash value of life insurance or whatever, that's a whole other topic. But I want that cash. And I think that was one of the that was one of the things that I learned in a really harsh way. And some of my students are like, but I've got $50,000 in cash. I feel like it's just sitting there. And I'm like, dude, you need more than that. You need more, especially if you're going to have a business, because if you're going to have several $1 million in assets, and I don't want to get into specific numbers on that because it's different for everybody, but however much cash that you have, you probably don't have enough. Because I think that there's too many people giving advice that they've never been through a tail event. I mean, sorry to sound so brash, I had my ass kicked in 2009, and I won't ever go back to that because I was broke. I had no choices. I had no options. But when you have cash in the bank, you have choices, you have options.
Dude, love it, man. This is awesome. I want to really thank you for being on the show, dude. This has been a super valuable episode. How do people learn more about you and what you're doing?
Probably the best way is just to reach out on landlordcoach.com. I mean, I really appreciate the platform. I love what you guys are doing. I love that we're similar, but we're not the same. I hear a lot about you guys. I love what you guys are doing, and I know your faith. I know what you're about. I love that side of it. I wish more businesses did that. We're so focused on on that side of things. I recently came into faith several years ago, back when my bride and I we were in a really, really bad spot. I mean, nuclear bad. Had every reason to throw in the towel. And then we put God where he needed to be in our life and in our marriage. And I am so grateful for that. And just recently, actually, we were baptized into a local church here that was a decision for the entire family. So, not to get off on that, I know but I know your faith, and I know you're if anybody's turned away from that, then just turn it off now, because that's what I'm about. But I'm not in your face about it, but I think that more businesses need to be this. More businesses need to be unafraid to approach those sorts of things. So thank you guys for what you're doing, and just keep at it. Cause I think, you guys have been a big inspiration for me. And I really appreciate the platform. But if there's anything I can ever help with anybody, just, probably the best way is just, landlordcoach.com, and you can find me on all the social medias and stuff like that.
Awesome, man. Thanks so much, Mark.
Thanks so much, guys. Take good care.
Dude, Mark's a cool guy, man. I feel like he's like a brother from another Lifeonaire mother, right? Like he has so many.
And you kind of look the same too. I mean,
right? Yeah, and and you guys just totally hit it off by like ganging up at me. I see how it is. That's fine. That's fine.
That sounds like Vojo. So this is the sponsored. Hopefully you'll get some royalty checks from that.
Right. So, well, dude, he has such a similar outlook as to what we teach in Lifeonaire. It's really cool, and so. I'm totally aligned with what he's talking about. And if you're a listener, this is probably resonating with you as well, because, what did we talk about? We talked about setting up your business in a way that serves your life, right? At this core of it. Like he talked about, whether it's spending, he even mentioned like, when you have a fight with your spouse, like that's like taboo to even talk about, like that, cause everybody's relationship is perfect, of course. And of course, Peter, you and I never ever fight with our wives, in case you're listening. Like that
never happens.
Never happens. But for everybody else, like, are you at your best when you're tired all day from working all the time and running around with your hair on fire? And what about, are you the best you can be for your kids? Are you the best you can be for your friends? I mean, all of these things kind of compound in your life when you're doing something, especially if you're not passionate about it because it's not your vision. But number two, if you're doing it and your life is getting sacrificed in the process.
That's so true, because if you think about it, if you listen to the entire podcast, he talks about what happened to him in 2008. And one of the things that I think a lot of us deal with, if you've gone through some tough times, how important this vision is.
Yeah.
To really keep you on track, because listen, you pull a certain lever that's not according to your vision, and all of a sudden there's like 30 other things that need to be taken care of because of that lever. And before you know it, you are spending 120 hours a week doing just to keep that ship, floating on the ocean. And it's so important to have this vision. I mean, we keep talking about it over and over and over again, but we keep talking about it because it's so important. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, dude. And one of the things I love that he talked about is like, how and this is an angle we haven't talked about a lot, but like he mentioned, like, if you're hiding in procrastination, well, what does your vision say about that? And are you hiding from that? Or what if are you hiding in activity? Like, are you just keeping yourself busy because you don't have a vision that's clear, and that's going to give you direction and give you kind of like a North Star to shoot for?
Yeah. And that's just so, I love the thing that he said at the beginning of the podcast, and I think I might butcher this particular sentence, but he said, your vision is like the keyhole that you look through towards the purpose, or something along those lines.
Yeah, the keyhole. Yeah.
And that was really cool, because if you think about it, when we talk about the vision in Lifeonaire, we talk about what do you want? You put that on your vision, and why do you want it? And why do you want it? There's part of that in the purpose of that. And when you start looking from that perspective, you start designing that vision, you start designing your life. And all of a sudden, you have to create this business in such a way that supports that vision. Because otherwise...
That's why we talk about this, dude. Like, this is why we tell people, hey, come to our Get a Life Getaway first, and then come to the Business Builder Workshop. Like, it's not mandatory, but you're going to get a lot more out of it, because you need to know what your business has to look like to serve your life. If you don't know what your life is going to look like, then how do you design a business?
Right. So here is what just popped into my head, dude. So towards the end of the podcast, I asked him about the biggest mistakes, right? And he said that he sees a lot of people now buying, right? Even spending more money to buy the properties because of the inflationary period and all the kind of things. And one of the things that is important to hear here is this. Do you have a vision? Does buying this right now in this particular period align with your vision? Is that what you're trying to go to? Or you're now becoming the opportunist? Is this because there is an opportunities and you start going after this and you start doing this because one, either you don't have a vision, or now you're doing things that are maybe against your vision, or they're actually aligned with your vision. So this is a perfect example during this particular time to start looking for yourself is, what is happening right now, right? Because now it's a different part of life, for instance, with the inflation and everything that's happening. You start asking, okay, so is this aligning with my vision?
Yeah.
If it is, I'm going for it, right? Because it's a great period. If it's not, that just tells you something right there. And that's why I think the vision is so important, because of periods
well, you know,
like
it's funny you mentioned that, man, as I'm talking about it. It's like, you know, so many people don't have a vision for their life, and they kind of just wander aimlessly around the world, around life, around business, around the relationships. The vision gives you that direction, but also what you mentioned is like this FOMO that he mentioned, fear of missing out, is based on looking at people around you and based on the actions of other people around you, right? That's why you have a fear of missing out, because like, oh, all these people are buying this, you know, I don't want to miss out on Bitcoin. I don't want to miss out on real estate. Prices of real estate are going up. And it's based on consumer community kind of action. It's like, you know, it's like herd mentality, but the vision is that thing that you need to look at, not everybody else.
Beacon.
Yeah, you got to look at the vision, not everybody else. So that's a great point, man. Well, listen, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It was awesome talking with Mark. I've never heard any but great things about him. So I hope you enjoyed this as well. Peter, if people want to learn more and be part of the Lifeonaire conversation, where can they go?
They go to Lifeonaire app.
Yeah.
You can download it on the Apple devices, on Android devices, on your uncle's phone, your mother's phone, your cousin's phone, anybody's phone. All right. This is a great gift to give him post New Year's Eve gift, or whatever you want to call it.
Just go on their phone and download it.
Don't download their app. Yeah, that's right. You thank me later.
Yeah. Awesome. We hope you enjoyed the episode. We will see you next time, everyone.